everybody, and welcome to another episode of TableBreakers. For those that tuned in last week, we are going to be doing the game next Thursday. Unfortunately, Bear did have a previous engagement, so we are uh, kind of doing a little bit. And this is actually something I've been working on for a while. Backstage, I was kind of showing TCG and Kai some of the stuff that I've been working on, and I said, Kai, this is your influence. You can see this, right? This is your influence, and you're yes, I can. So we're going to actually dig into world building, and the first big thing with world building is geography. So geography is a crucial aspect of world building in tabletop RPGs. The environment in which the game takes place can have significant impact on gameplay, the characters, and I'm going to say the word, story.
What? No.
Yes, I said it.
Oh.
The geography of your world can affect everything from the types of creatures that live there, the types of resources that are available, and the people who inhabit it. Understanding the geography of your world is essential in creating a rich and immersive gaming experience. So, gentlemen, both Kai and TCG, you both have got some pretty heavy experience under your belts with building your own worlds, and even TCG. I mean, you're building an entire game system on top of it. So, with that being said, what types of, and I'm going to start with TCG, what types of correlations do you need to make sure you're making between the, as I read off in that little intro thing, for the resources, for the creatures that live there, and for the folks who inhabit it? What are some of the mindsets and steps that you take to filter through all that and to figure out who goes where and what goes where and things along those lines?
Well, as a lot of people, I take inspiration from real world for a lot of that kind of stuff. Like, if I'm going to put in a mountainy environment, especially if it's cold, I'm going to make them a little bit of the more mountainy. They usually have long beards. They usually wear furs. If you take off their shirts, they look more muscular because they're used to working in harder conditions. I'll use that atypical for the people, and for the environment itself, it kind of depends on how high the mountains are and how I want them to look. I like using environment to inform how an area might feel to you as a player. Like, I kind of failed during a little game to explain the island a little bit better. I just showed a map and called it good. I should have given a little bit better explanation that had a kind of a mystical property. What I usually do is like, I'll actually give the island as an example. As you come up on the island, you see it's greener than you would expect for an island. It's actually a little bit more, almost not luminescent, but almost like it shines a little bit. The island itself also has a feel of being more of a presence than you would normally expect from an island of its size. And
Okay.
as for the creatures, sorry.
Go. No, keep going.
I love using creatures based off of how the environment should feel. Like, if I'm wanting an environment where you are constantly annoyed, I will hunt down books and try to make sense of big, at least insects of some kind, preferably big ones, that come in and annoy you. Not necessarily cause you a lot of problem, but will annoy you. I love insects for that. But if I'm looking for a more dark forest, you'll get more of the hunting, stalking type predators, the ones that you will just see on the corner of your vision. And so I will put things into the environment based off the feel I want the environment. But especially given I'm a Palladium guy, they have a lot of world books. I still stick with, you at least try very hard to stick with what's in that section of the world book. Excellent example, Leon Sloth Jungles. They don't really have any of the nice mountain predators I like to use occasionally from the northern end of the continent. So I don't use them as much as I like to, because they can really give a good spooky, I don't like it here vibe. But there are other creatures that not quite as good, because the northern creatures are really creepy, but the other creatures can still give you a nice eerie feeling if you play them off right. So my environment is based off of the location of the world that you are in, and the vibe I'm trying to give you as the player.
Okay. Kai, what about you?
This is about the environment I use, correct?
Correct. The geography, the like the ecosystems, the people that you're going to be putting in there, what resources are available in those different areas, etc.
Honestly, the idea at that point is simply a realization of where most people tend to want to live. I hate the idea that you're just going to be looking at, basic idea is the land arable, how good the resources, what's in the area. So therefore, it's a good chunk of civil engineering. What's in the area? How's trade going to happen? Is it water land based? Because I'm going to go that most people have to actually live there. How far can someone walk in a day? Like, how far will the average person move to, go to travel? So that determines out the kind of people in the area, and then you can start going, okay, this is this is the farming, this is the crafting, this is what's available, what resources. Here's what the people have probably for their culture. Is it equatorial? Is it temperate? Or is it more Arctic? That will affect things. And then I realized most people don't live where there's no water. So therefore, if you don't have water, no one's going to be there. It's going to be desolate. Why would anyone be there? Well, savage people who are, and then you just kind of go based on the idea. I hate to say that, just open, I don't want to say go do some research and read, because that will be kind of boring. And yeah, I know some books are not exactly in favor for cultural development, but you gotta follow the line. So therefore, if you're not going to have a people who, if you plunk them in the middle of a Great Plains, who don't have access to trees, hills, mines, or anything like that, they're not going to be like, well, of course we're going to build a massive civilization that has advanced engineering. No, they don't have any of those resources. All they got are plants and wanderingness. You don't get that. Or hey, everything's just misery-filled swamps and jungles. You don't see a lot growing in those kind of regions that are expansive, unless they do something very, very weird and very special and they stand out. But I will do a lot of that kind of work because, well, it just means that you just got to realize, well, you live in an environment where plants grow really fast. It's hot, humid. What happens in hot, humid environments? Decay. What happens there? Metal rusts. Oh dear God, metal rusts. Water is your enemy. Therefore, and it's a lot of these questions that all span out to you really can't say I want Rome, but it's happening in the Arctic Circle. No, not going to happen. Or maybe it does, but you got to figure out the differences between what allowed for the Roman Empire to exist, to have a Roman culture, but now you're putting it in a land where you only get 3 months of growing per year because it's cold and miserable. So how do you get not Vikings, but but ice Romans to happen. You don't, but hey, you might be able to make it work. This is
I
just
feel
a lot.
targeted.
What was that?
I feel targeted.
Look,
My ice people in my game are Romans.
okay, now you need to figure out how you need to do a lot of work to figure out and explain how you get Roman culture to develop in a land of cold and misery. I did not know you were doing this, so I'm going to target you now.
Oh no, I got it. They found hot springs, so they build bathhouses.
Okay, a lot of geothermal, and you just now, and I'm pretty sure that you'll find a way to get around. Okay, so they have some way of doing vast agriculture and the ability to draw upon a large, civilian population that somehow will have to be supported by the frigid Arctic land of very, very foul fish in cans. So, hey, I mean, I did the exact same thing where I decided to drop my world's version of the Byzantine Empire up into the Arctic until one day I realized up until the northern latitudes of what would be New England's climate, and then I had to realize, oh fuck, how did this develop? How did this function? Because I just airdropped a culture and language into that area, and then went, oh shit, how make it work? And I had to do a lot of reverse engineering because I was being dumb, but I hate retcons, so I filled in all the holes. And yes, I know the reason why I'm making fun of this is because I did it, and then went, oh, that was dumb. Well, already did it. Must make it work, and ran with it. So, yeah, like I said, just do your homework so you don't do what I did and make a complete grand fuck up, but no one else notices because you do all the work in the background. Sweat hard today so you can relax tomorrow.
Sounds good.
Okay. So you kind of touched on this, Kai. So I'm gonna swing back around to you.
Alrighty.
How does the geography affect the people and creatures that live in those regions? I mean, you've kind of touched on that just a little bit. Kind of dig in.
Okay, so in one of the two worlds that I predominantly run around in, I have this. When I first drew it, it made sense, but then I had to figure out how it worked, and then I figured out how ocean currents. I started doing how the world's ocean currents and major rain patterns happened. But I wish I could show it off better because I only have one thing remaining of it. Let me see if I can do this real quick. Okay, so I have a globe that I painted. See this? Okay, on this little map. God, I hate this thing so much, but I love it because it allows me to measure out distances. Now, on the middle of this continent, there's a huge lake that runs from a series of lakes that runs from north to south of it, and a mountain range and jungles. And I had to figure out how to do all that. And how's this monstrous continent-sized inner freshwater ocean exist? And what's feeding this monstrous lake that bleeds off in two directions into the ocean at all times? And I'm like, well, okay, but no, that established the idea that okay, this is a massive inner sea area which has floating cities, giant, but it was humid. Like it's just warm and wet and humid, and well, anybody else who live anywhere that's warm, wet, and humid knows everything decays fast. It's like everything rusts unless you constantly keep it oiled and well maintained. Clothing just disintegrates, so it's like everything's literally in this made of stone and wood and constantly being rebuilt. Like, is there a forest fire? No. Is there constant flooding? Yes. Is there water? Is there waterborne monsters everywhere? Yes. How do the people exist in this? Well, obviously this is a wet, miserable environment where it's constantly raining because there's this ridge of hills that so this monstrous wet front is constantly blowing moisture in from the ocean, so it's constantly wet and miserable. But it's hitting this rain shield of mountains that dumps the rain onto the. So there's just constant streams and rivers everywhere. So there's bridges everywhere. The people realize that the land is just full of fungus, disease, and monsters. So they've built way stations that, as far as one man can walk, how far can a man how far can a human walk with carrying a pack of material in one day on a road? Nobody goes off road because you go off road, it's quicksand, swamps, and marshes. Nobody wants to walk across that shit. So at about 13 to 20 miles, there's a way station. It's a fortified way station. Is it a real town? No. But these are fortified way stations that are built on stilts above the ground, and they have armed rangers who sit there and watch. They'll haul your wagons up into the out of the muck so that way they're safe for the night, because they know once night falls, that's when all the weird creatures come out. And come morning, everyone gets ready, gets cleaned up. They lower your wagons down, and you're allowed to go back off onto the road. It's like adventurers who are stupid go out there and go, I don't need to stop at a way station. We're going to power march. And then they find themselves stuck out in the wilderness, and all the logs are wet, so you can't get dry tinder to go build your own fire. There's bugs everywhere. Things are like the smell of decay is just continuous. And then you reach it, and then after 4 or 5 days, you reach a town, an actual real town. And these towns are fortified. They're built on stilts, and they're just because you don't know when a flash flood's going to hit, or some weird monster is going to come walking out. So every town is built dedicatedly fortified, and it's like, oh, I'm just gonna go live out. It's like, and like there are farms, and you see and in that area, the parts that have been civilized and pacified and cleaned up start to resemble like the Dutch or the Netherlands, where they have massive dikes and huge windmills, but they're always guarded because they're pumping out the water that's constantly seeping in, so that way they can have farms, because they want to have civilization in this continent that would otherwise be vast swamps of nothingness. So they're constantly fighting this endless war eternally against the encroaching of Mother Nature, which Mother Nature wants to reclaim everything. And when you're playing in a realm where you have gods of nature who literally go, I find civilization to be abhorrent, and I dislike greatly the idea that these morties, are showing up and cleaning up my region. This is my land. I'm going to unleash whatever I want upon these people because, they're gods. You're under their effect, but they have limited means, and you have ways to fight them. And so, I'm fighting against the dark gods. No, you're just fighting against the local river god and the local rain god and the local jungle god, who all hate you because you're diverting their river and their nature, and they're out to stop you. But don't worry, you want to keep you and your 8,000 civilians alive in this town. Every once in a while you lose, and the town goes away, and then people come in and rebuild it. Or you go on to the vast inland sea, where you have people praying to the local inland ocean god, because they don't want Neptune, by whatever name you want to call him, is out there in the salty water land. We don't deal with him, but we're in the inland sea where we can't see the shore anymore, and it's the ocean. But now it's an inland ocean god, and hey, look, a giant snake decides to eat one of the boats. Oh, we better have convoy tactics, because, inland water kraken decides to eat people. We don't want to fight the Godzilla crocodiles, but we need to get to that island over there that has all the civilization. So so it's fun, the idea of medieval convoy tactics of naval, and you have specialized, adventurers who dive into the water to fight underwater monsters, because, well, sorry, this isn't our modern world where you just could build a 3-deck grand sailing ship and go, nothing's above nothing's above and below the waves. Everything is above the waves. No, we live in you have flying shit, so you have people who are building ballistas that can shoot down Thunderbirds, and you have people who are underwater. Plus, you have who knows what the heck weird mangrove forest that you're dealing with that just decides to grow fast, and now you have a changing constant shoreline. So you can't just go, well, I have these 20-year-old rudders, they'll get me where I need to go. Crunch, bloody, and it allows for high seas adventure in a freshwater environment, which still hates you and is out to devour your ship and murder you, and because water has liquefied hate. Anyway,
like myself, there's one book series that I've been really drawn to over the past year and a half. And Kai, I've sent it to you, so don't worry. It's He Who Fights with Monsters. So
yes.
it's kind of a parallel Earth, but it's different. And about once every 10 years, they have what they call a monster surge that happens. It's a release of magical energy, and all these magic critters, pop up, and they have to go out and take care of them. And they actually have, bunkers set up in most major metropolitan towns and, heavier fortified towns to keep people safe. I would think that would definitely be something that would be a geography type thing also, is knowing that, okay, the surge is coming, the bad stuff's coming. We need to get over to a town and a half, a town over, that's a 3-day ride, and hopefully we don't expire going there from the monsters attacking, and get into the shelters until things blow over, and then we go back to our little houses and we rebuild, and we're good for another 10 15 years, and that's something else that is more, I think, on the mystical side, is where I would call that, where that is also something that goes into geography, because it's kind of like if you live down in the southern US, with hurricanes don't come in and hit the same places every single year. Sometimes they do. Sometimes they veer off, and maybe they don't hit Florida or the Carolinas. Maybe they go up and hit New York. Maybe they swing around and hit Mexico. Maybe they swing around and just put Texas under 6 feet of water. But those are the type of things also where the geography, and and we'll get into more climate and weather type stuff, but I'm using those for instances, where the geography, sometimes things happen every single year as it is, every year in the 10th month of the year, we're at the end of it, we're going to see our first snow, because we're up in the mountains, and that's when that comes. So we need to make sure that we have everything pulled in, and all the crops in, everything's ready to go for winter, because we're not going to have a place to farm as big. Maybe that's how those ice Romans, as you put it, in Crafting Gamers game, they've built domes from the heat, and are able to grow food, not as much, but grow food year round. That could be a use of geography, and how the geography affects the people in that region. I kind of stole something from you there, TCG, and I apologize if that's what you were going to say. But since we're picking on your ice Romans, that's where we're going to keep going.
That's fine.
Sorry, but not
The
Well,
so
actually, what I was
with
gonna
you,
say-
how does your geography affect the people and creatures that live in those regions?
Oh, in every way imaginable, honestly, like geography will play a huge part in how people will hunt, how people will gather their supplies, how people will just simply do their day-to-day life. Like, someone needs to go over to another village, they will use the geography of the land, not just like for the road, but like for the journey itself. Like, okay, if I take this particular route, I have a good chance of getting attacked by bandits. But this area, though it's not actually set up for a road, it's clearer than most places, so I can get through there, and I'll be less likely to be attacked. And then there's the creatures themselves. A lot of creatures, at least in my games, will purposely set up ambush spots in good places. At the top of a cliff, right at the to the point that some places do not have roads at the bottom of cliffs because it's a good place to get ambushed by a predator. And then there's let's see here, and then there's geography. Like, this was inspired by a show I once seen as a kid, but it was a really good concept. And then there's a natural phenomenon that is considered part of the geography of the land. The show itself showed long story short, itself showed how a land could have a gigantic monster roaming about it, destroying things in it, and yet it's considered part of the natural features of the land, not an actual monster. So I've done that with a couple of things, like I think, no, it wasn't a dragon. It was a dragon-like creature, but it was more the equivalent of a fae. As long as it lived, the land prospered, but if it died, the land died with it.
You've been talking to Connell a lot with the magic dragons, and the dragons die out, the magic dies out.
See here. I know where I was going with that, but I sidetracked myself and forgot what I was saying.
Okay.
What was the question again?
How does the geography in your world affect the people and creatures that live within those regions?
Oh, right. Well, going a little more towards creatures themselves. If the geography supports could support birds, I'll actually put a lot more birds in the area than I will other creatures. Not necessarily as an annoyance, but it just makes sense. Like, excellent example, the I forgot if it was in a Palladium game or Rifts game, but anyway, it doesn't matter. I put the birds that burrow into soft rock into the game. Nobody really noticed until no, they didn't notice at all, actually, when the birds flew off, because they were supposed to be a natural sign of the land that something was about to happen.
Wow, Six Nations. Wow.
When I that's funny. When I told the characters that all the birds flew out of the cliffs at the same time, nobody responded. But it was meant to be a geographic warning to the players.
Maybe a hunter there, or maybe, a predator was close.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly what I did, but I do remember them ignoring the warning.
Okay. Let's see.
Well, short of repeating Kai, I can't say much more than that, honestly, because
Okay, that's not a big deal. Now, some of the other stuff I don't think we really touched on is, we touched on a little bit of it, the, mountainous regions, maybe a cooler climate, and receive more precipitation. I can't talk tonight. You can ask these guys pre-show. My tongue was just like doing knots on itself. For example, it'll get more rain than and snow than what a desert region will, and it'll affect the types of plants and animals that will be there. Whereas at like the base of the mountain, it's going to be very lush because of all the water runoff. And you're going to find in the desert more of the cacti and drought resistant plants, and you'll find at the base of the mountain, on the mountain in the base of the mountain, more alpine type meadows and coniferous trees. So now we talked a little bit about how the people and creatures are affected. What about resources? Because in order for these people to live in these areas, you also have to take a look at resources. How are these people going to live? How are they going to be able to provide food for themselves, get lumber, if they're in a area where not necessarily they're able to do all that. We'll start with TCG on this one.
Let's see here. Resources. Let's see here. I'm trying to figure out how to word this. Usually resources end up playing a background for most of the game I play because most of the players don't usually care. So after I did for a while, but I didn't put as much effort into it after a while. But one of the things I do like to do is think about what the area has in the end, even if the players aren't interested, because there does have to be something. Like, we'll go with my game for an excellent example. Kai has asked several times about different points of the economy in my game, especially like the lumber needed for building ships. I decided not to make it that rare because otherwise ships could get ridiculously expensive outside of the means of a player being able to get because they already cost millions to have. So I had to think about other things that could be built on top of resources that cities might build. So one of the things that came out for that in my game is ice and salt is there's the two big ones that people will build cities around. Water is another good one, but that's usually for the personal use of the city. Ice is generally very rare in this game because most things stay at an altitude of, pretty low by our standards. So ice buildup isn't not that common. The only place that is common is under the purple sun, but that's because it's the ice sun. Everything's frozen there. And salt. I didn't think about it at first, but I thought about it after a while. There is, especially in a world where you can spend months without seeing an island, you have to have preservatives. So I thought about it and figured salt would be extremely valuable, especially given the fact that the world is built up in islands. Therefore, finding a gigantic salt deposit is going to be very rare. So I actually I haven't added it to the book yet, but I intend to add a city that's literally built on a salt mine. Its one and only purpose is to mine salt. There will be another city that's built off of ice alone. And I've had to put a lot more thought into this for my games as of late because I'm building my own game. So resources is something that I have not put as much effort into as I should have until recently. So I always did at least a little background for that. Every town always had, well, they're a lumber town, or they're a mining town, or, well, they're the in between point for the dwarven city and the human city over here. So they get a lot of traffic from both. There's always been a reason for a city to exist, is how I should put this. I just never put as much effort into it as till recently, because most of my players were never really interested. And I will start repeating myself if I continue.
Okay. So, in I for me as on the player side, I find it really kind of scary that your players don't look at that more. Just for the simple fact of to know what they can get. That's the big thing, because you're not going to be able to go buy everything in every town type of thing. So you're gonna kind of need to know what you got and for supplies and all that. I mean, you're gonna have some things that are going to be more of the oh yeah, we've got this and this here. That's great. But then you're going to say, okay, well, in this region, this area, they have an abundance of this. So where you could theoretically, especially with the way your game is set up, you could have a very swarthy captain go, really, you guys have an overabundance of this. I could buy some of that, take it to a place that I know doesn't have a lot of this, that I could really make some profit on.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to sound like the guy who sits back with the spreadsheets and the abacus and tried to oh, well, we go from point A to point B over to point C, and then come and just keep doing that little soiree, and we're going to make all of our money. But
Hey.
Well, admittedly, Kai saying that he didn't want to be a spreadsheet. Sorry.
Give me my airship elite dangerous game where all I do is play I merchants and caravans in the air as though I'm playing Traveler. I back off. Give me the collapse of the Third Imperium / Fifth Border Wars, and I'll be happy. Okay. Otherwise, I'm going to ask the price of toilet paper in China. Thank you very much.
Well, see, we've already called TCG out on his, so I had to call you out on yours. But
I am a spreadsheet flyer.
and trust me, I know that, and that's the only reason why I brought that up. But I mean, and looking at especially if they are invested, that's the biggest thing when you're doing world building. You want to make sure that you actually get things set up so they're invested, so they want to find out what's going on or what they could do to make some money. Because I'm sorry, I have yet to see any type of adventuring party, minus maybe some of the murder hobos. I'll give them that, but where they don't want to try to figure out, hey, how can I make some cash? Is there anything I can craft that I can sell here? Even in a small amount, that's going to be going to bring in a little of that moolah, or help grease some of the gears here so we can make some trades and stuff maybe later on. That's the type. And maybe I'm just I'm a little slightly different, but those have been a lot of the groups I've been with, and that has always come, especially with immersion. And especially when you're building a world, you want to have a certain sense of immersion and trying to find out what the economy is like. There's three things that you always want to find out in a world: the economy, the culture, as in what are the cultural norms? What are the things that are going to be get you looked at really not nicely? And religion. Those are the three things that you always want to look at, because you don't want to upset the folks, the priest type folks, because they're going to be supplying you with the healing and getting you back on your feet. You don't want to torque off the locals, because even 200 people with pitchforks can kill a good level player. And three, is learn what makes the economy work so you can make it work for you. And as some people like to coin it, work smarter, not harder. So and now Kai, what about you? What do resources look like in your games?
Okay, so you have basic bitch common resources. So your standard lumber, your standard iron, where unless you're living in a very iron poor region, you're not Japan, so even they have iron veins in their mountains. So most people have access to your basic bitch items, where like your woods, your grains, your peats, your straws, your hays, your basic lumbers, basic metals. But the fun part always come because we live in we play video game we play RPGs and video games that have special resources. So you always have those weird so at that point it all comes down to, if you don't mind living out in the middle of nowhere and you like living in your mundane land, of course. But since everyone wants to have the best and the brightest, they want to have their mithril, their titanium. They want to have their adamantine, tungsten. They want to have gold and silver.
You'll have gold
and your gems and your precious stones and whatever fantasyite that you have in your realm. And I have a place where there's basic adamantine, there's basic if you go out into the very deeps of the heart, so because tungsten does exist out there. It's rare, but you can buy it. You can buy titanium. It's rare. It's in only a few locations, but you can buy it. Do you want something in vast quantities? You might have to go to the places where they exist, but there probably are things that are there that I have a horrible place that I refer to as Endgame Land. It's jokingly referred to as Endgame Land, but it has an actual name. But everyone knows that you go there, and that's where all the high-end materials that you can't find anywhere else are all found at. Do you want your multicolored jades? Do you want to have your thoriums, your ceramite steels, and all these weird components? It's all found in this one area, but it's a very scary land full of monsters and terrible things, because it's obviously the most powerful place where all the best materials, the best magicite is all hiding at. Yeah, you can find inferior coins around the rest of the world, no problem. But you want the best, the best of the best for your top end item? Of course, everybody does. So everybody's fighting for this little chunk of land, and then every once in a while, Godzilla comes up there and kicks your colony into the ocean, and it's fun because I also refer to it as Kaiju Island, and they're like, oh yeah, we're totally going to. Do you want to go fight the 4-headed Jotun with eight arms, who's the size of a mountain? Yes. Okay, cool. You fought him, but Ghidorah shows up next week, and then Godzilla's got his scheduled thing. Cthulhu will make his appearance in about a month. This place is terrible and horrible. Why would anyone want to live here? Do you want that ultra pure pure metal for your artifact, sword, and or battleship you're building? Yes, I kind of need it. Good. Go fight. Go play tag with the horrible monsters that live here. This place is terrible. Why doesn't anyone want to leave this place? Why does anyone want to go here? high-end materials. Why don't these monsters go and conquer the rest of the world? No, they know that, like, why would you go out there and kick over an anthill 3 yards over? No, all the best stuff's over here because they want it too. And it's like this horrible little island. But it's funny because the entire world knows that. So you have high-end adventurers who are paid to, I need you to go into this land of hell. Yep. And mine me 10 kilograms of this stuff. Awesome. Now pay me about 500,000 gold pieces. Okay, I'll pay you that. And then they get to have high-level adventures where they get go dodge giant fireballs, evil wizards, and floating Doomland, because everybody wants the end game stuff, and well, the rest of the world doesn't have it. And the rest of the world's okay with, as long as all the bad guys are fighting over there, it's okay. We can all have our empires over here. And also every Jotun and kaiju knows that they're only one monster, and when they go out there, Blaine knows way too much about how armies work. You're a really powerful thing, but Godzilla gets defeated by a bunch of Freon tanks and some destroyers. So don't and so like I said, so every monster knows, okay, I'm really powerful here, but I don't want to go and fight the Roman Legion. Because like I said, we all watch Godzilla's and -1. We know Godzilla gets beaten by a bunch of tugboats. So I mean, it's fun. It's terrible, and I love it because it's a great place to go. You want high-end stuff? You want to go to high-end land? I'm going to colonize this. Congratulations, football practice. And it's a wonderful little place where I get to play high-level games with players, and they're like, do you attract the attention of God? You mean actual God? Yeah, it's just an actual God just walking around. He hates you. Oh, why? God wants to have good equipment too, and he's going to get resources. Well, can't God just snap his fingers? This isn't that kind of deity. No, you got to follow the rules like everybody else does. Oh, okay. But no, I do actually have, certain regions have certain resources, certain things specialize in certain developments, and if you're in a jungle, you're probably not getting mass mithril deposits, but you're probably going to get awesome, reagents for your alchemy. So there's lots of trade, lots of things. People are constantly going, where can I get good sugar at? Where can I get good spices and cinnamons at? Can I build a plantation so I can have good farming and good food? Because I want a good donut, and I don't want to, they ask silly questions. And yes, knowing the resources is great because it allows you to do my thing of, we're all going to play Elite Dangerous in D&D or EVE Online in D&D, because guess what? People want stuff, and not everyone has all stuff in one spot. You need to haul stuff. But that doesn't sound like adventure. It doesn't sound like adventure to you. That's all.
Okay.
And yes,
go back and start watching.
Slave labor, okay? You're a bunch of retards who are given a simple task, and then we all cry because you can't figure out how to do that.
I need to start going back and watching Kai's videos and maybe learn how to talk like Kai. Because admittedly, what I was trying to say was pretty much what Kai said, but my words were not coming out of my mouth.
I've had a lot of time to think about this shit. Just remember that.
He's had a lot of time, and he's actually built several worlds. So yeah.
Fair.
Hey, NZ.
I have 2 worlds. I have 2 very, very well developed worlds. Thank you.
So we've looked at the resources and everything else, and how does geography affect a culture's way of life? And with the creatures, I'm going to use the example of society in a coastal region relies heavily on fishing trade. So I'm going to start with Kai. How where they're located, how do you make sure to tie in the natural things that they are getting in order to export them, etc.
Okay. The important thing is no matter where you drop your people at, wherever you just drop your starting area that you're going to be working on, are they like, if you say you're looking at a coastal area or somebody who's living on a bunch of rivers, you now have the idea, in essence, do they, it's easier to sail. Do they have access to the ability of wood and timber and quantity? If they have those two things, you have the ability to have mass travel along boats, along coastlines, along up rivers. As long as the river is vast, wide, and navigable, you have the ability to stretch trade inland fast. But if you, because boats do travel far faster than a person can walk, so you might see a merchant empire or a river-based empire being able to extend deep into the land and into the continent or along coastlines, but you might start seeing them have problems, walking into the interior. But if you see, but if you're more of a inland empire, you might have to start asking, well, how far can this geography comes back down to communications? Because I know we all depend on magic to do most of our, heavy lifting, or we just snap our fingers and say, oh, somebody just, sends magic spell out. No, communications move at the speed of a person can walk. So if you're in a heavily wooded, so say person can walk on plains 13 miles. I'm going to go with standard Pathfinder Kingmaker travel distance. 1 hex, 13 miles. So huffing, you leading a bunch of donkeys, carrying all your shit on your back or whatever across unmodified terrain, miserable grassland conditions where you're just walking 13 miles. So how long do you need to be able to, how long is an acceptable delay for central communications for trade? On average, I throw a road down. Road now doubles your movement. I can now move 26 miles in a day. Not bad. I have a horse. I can now double that again. I'm now looking at a 40-something kilometer radius that I can, a 40-mile radius that I can now govern efficiently 1 day to reach the periphery of my region. I can now have, so 1 day and then 1 day back. So whatever communications lag I now have is a 2-day communication. Can you effectively govern that way? Yes. 1 day delay in communications is not too bad. 2 days, not too bad. Now try to expand out to, but that's just on open plains. Now we're going to go look at, suddenly we have forests. Forests have your speed. So you're living in a heavily wooded region with roads. You're only looking at now moving, 20 miles in a day at best on horseback because, well, you don't know. Things are dangerous. Things are dicey. You can't see far, so you want to move slower, move safer. I want to move through hilly terrain. Through hilly terrain, hills have speed again. Now I'm hilly and on top of that, it's wooded because I'm under the tree line. Oh, things start getting really not pleasant for purposes of moving. Communications start to lag out. How long are you willing to wait? Well, I'm going to cross a mountain range. Mountains quarter things. So now we're looking at, it's a wooded mountain. Oh, it's going to take weeks a week to cross that. What would be a simple, 10, 15 mile pass, unless you carve that pass out and make it a pass. That's why passes become immensely valuable choke points. So important because that's an easy area for people to travel through. You don't want to go over the mountains. Saruman might throw birds at you, or cause a snowstorm. You might end up dying from weather. Oh man, we're taking a shortcut through the mountains. You have been snowed in, and now you must eat your friends. Donner party. It's like one of those things where you have to think about a lot of this, dictates. And plus, oh no, you've encountered a river. It wasn't on the map, and there's no bridge. Now you must go do the dreaded Oregon Trail thing. Do you ford the river? And suddenly your wagon sinks. Because let's be honest, we all literally, have played Oregon Trail. We've all had our wagons sink on the first river. So, think about how most adventurers play. How many of us are weighed down with 40 to 80 to 100 pounds of gear? And how many of us took athletics to swim? Nobody. So how many of us die on the first river? Everybody. Because none of us took engineering. So none of us could lash 4 logs together and float the fighter across because the fighter's too stupid and the barbarian can't swim. But don't worry, we got that one retard. Spellcaster goes, I could cast Water Walk. Oh, good. You get across. The rest of us are all wondering how we don't drown crossing, hip deep over. So you get to watch the fighter with his sword over his hand going, this is not pleasant. I have water in my socks. I'm going to be miserable for the next day. And it's a lot of these are things that we don't really think about because we're used to playing, Tolkien walking simulator, where the idea of course you're going to be out there for 4 to 5 weeks wandering through there while somebody plays triumphant music in the background as you cross a ridge that looks beautiful for that one shot. But civilization isn't adventurers, and you're building a world that's supposed to be living. People kind of want to be able to, not sleep in a desolate field out in the middle of nowhere. They're going to build small little towns. And so I know we live in a modern age where we have highways, the ability to drive 80 miles per hour everywhere on the interstate. But there's a reason why when you travel everywhere, I'm sorry, I live in the Midwest, so therefore I'm used to driving extremely long distances to get anywhere. But you ever notice something? Every 10 miles, there's a town. Every 10 miles, there's a town. Because that is about how far people were willing to travel by foot before we had cars. And that's why when I'm leaving Peoria, I drive 10 miles, there's a town. It's Metamora. It sits there. And then I drive 10 more miles. It's Roanoke. I'm there. I drive 10 miles in their direction. I'm in Eureka. Every town's about 10 to 12 miles apart. This should give you an idea that every town is you're going to find a community that has a gas station, general store, restaurant, diner, and a place to sleep for travelers, yes, and a simple market in every one of these little towns. They're not grand, they're not wonderful. You're going to have merchants traveling through it, but the terrain always dictates this. You're not going to see, if you can't walk more than 10 miles in a day into the mountains, well, no one's going to build a lot of things except for the dwarves. Dwarves like mountains. Well, now you got a reason why elves don't get penalties while walking through woods. Well, of course, their communities are spread apart in woods. Woods and dense forests are a natural place for them because the humans go, we can't really go there. I play Dwarf Fortress, and you'll be sitting here going, oh no, I don't. This sucks. And you just play Dwarf Fortress for a while, or you figure it out and then you start figuring out, okay, cultural niches. Or if you have people who go, no, we live on mostly just fungus and other things. Well, now you got a cultural niche for those people to live in. I mean, you got to be able to figure out. Terrain matters a lot because this is how your trade networks connect. And rivers are magic. Rivers just give you wonderful amounts. And then the first moment a player goes, can I make my boat go faster? Well, yes, of course you get your boat go faster. And now you're doing double the speed. Well, now you got vast roads that are so suddenly you don't need to have a town. You don't need to have a Germantown Hills, Metamora, Roanoke before you get to Pontiac. You get to have, I have my trade town of Portsburg, and then I travel what would be a 4-day trip by barge, and now I'm in Riverton. And Rivertown gets to go, oh, yeah, we're the major trading part. We're now the major trading hub with Port Town. So, And so now you get to see, okay, so now everybody who's got wagons will now gravitate towards Riverton. So you get these little like cluster hubs that now is like, well, okay. So as long as it's like, so Riverton matters because it's now the major trade hub that gets you down the river to something big one, 1 day, 2 days down travel down river. Or from there, you got to figure out, do your boats handle deep water very well? Has anyone figured out how to, build a boat that can go into the deep blue sea? If the answer is no, everyone's going to hug your coastlines. And so therefore the coastlines are going to be mapped, but the ocean will have big fluffy dragons in it, and it says, here be dragons, because when you travel out into the deep water, you die. And so therefore a bunch of raggedy men with beards in giant rowboats come out of the ocean, and we are not sea people. We are not Vikings, and we are here because you have pretty things. Give us your stuff. And you're like, but wait, no, that's not how this works. And then suddenly you have a castle on fire and a church on fire and a bunch of weird smelly dudes with beards rowing back out into the ocean. You're like, people don't go out into the ocean. Ocean is scary. Where do they come from? They are sea bandits. I shall mark them down as sea people. And now we have the collapse of the Bronze Age. Yay. Sorry about that. I talked too much there. I'm sorry.
Bother me any. Baron seems to be gone.
But no, a big chunk of this is, do you play Civilization? Where do you get the best resources from? Those are where you want to live. You figure out, like I said, it's all about trade. It's all about movement. It's all about how you walk, how you travel. And everything hinges around that. And the faster you travel, the less you need to have the intermediates. So, yeah. But since we play mostly fantasy, but then again, if you're playing with, say, Traveler, once again, what's the average jump speed? Jump rating. Okay, those are the important worlds. Smaller jump 1 hubs aren't needed because you have jump 2. If jump 3 is the common one, you don't need to have the intermediates anymore, unless they're just emergency refill stops. You can start bypassing things. It's the whole reason why jump 4, jump 5 is so insane, because now you're jumping multiple fucking hexes at once. Airships, same thing. Crafting. How fast is your airships?
I have, at this particular moment in time, I am abstract with their worldly speed, but I have made engines that are faster to one another.
Okay. How fast okay, I know you're abstract. How fast does a boat travel? Are we talking about sailing ship speeds?
No, the planet is the size of Jupiter. We're literally talking outer space speeds just to get anywhere.
Okay.
That's why it's abstract.
Okay. So we're talking about. Okay, we got some weird. Okay, we're gonna have some fun issues that are gonna come up, because the way you drew your ships are open topped, like almost sailing vessels in their design. Okay, I don't know about you, but I do not want to be standing on deck, or even with an open porthole, porthole or a hatch or a gunnery bay, when I'm traveling at several hundred kilometers per second, or hour, or even hour. Like, once you get about like you want to be enclosed. Once you start reaching, accelerations that are usually meant for spacecraft, or we're playing Traveler, and I'm burning at several G's of acceleration continuously to be able to make transit across the planet, you're going to run into people aren't standing on deck, not with there's air pressure. You're going to see people being blown off the ship very quickly. Do some,
or the sudden stop.
The abstract nature of it,
right? But the thing here is that you're right. Barry just said the most important thing. It's the sudden stop or turning that's going to cause problems. Mostly, I'm happily here. And then the captain goes, "We're making an emergency turn to port." And then inertia says, "I keep going forward." The boat goes one way, I go the other. I hope the guardrail cuts me in half, because I will be dead instead of falling into the bottom of the universe. Now, so I know the idea that the planet is the size of Jupiter is a cool idea. I like this, but travel is going to be an important thing unless, I don't know, unless there's a magical thing that eliminates inertia or momentum. Now, if that is a development that allows, ships to move at exceedingly high speeds and everybody gets to walk around on deck like they're all happy, happy until they leave the momentum bubble, cool. That's a cool thing. But like I said, once we start looking at interplanetary space probe or orbital velocities, things start to look very. I'm going to die now.
Yeah, and the ships I don't think are going to have like a Heisenberg compensator on them to be able to take care of the inertia.
Like I said, if that's one of the things that makes the airship drive work, is that it also extends a die bubble, momentum won't kill you bubble. That's cool. That's it. Because again, Traveler has. Where does grav plates come from? No one knows. No one understands it. It's just high technology. Grav plates exist, and we all go, okay, grav plates exist. Okay, cool. We don't have to deal with thrust-based gravity, so we're not having to build our ships like like Skytroopers, where the main fusion drive is at the back and pushing you, and you all build each floor up from the engine room. If you don't want to have that, just create something that eliminates the we go splat if we accelerate too fast buttons, and have it have some flaws, have some, it isn't a 100% cancellation, so you do get to feel when the ship lurches a bit to the right or begins to drift a little bit, but we only feel like a little bit of force, but we're not having the sense of we could be plastered against the starboard side of the hull because the ship turned too hard. That's cool. Yeah. Like I said, but speed is important. I know you're asking it, and that's cool. But speed is important because you need to have an idea of how far a ship can travel in a day. Because if you just say it can travel, you run into, I'm going to call it, Seven Seas problem. The Seven Seas issue, because that game also has a rule that says in combat you can move wherever you want. So we had a situation where somebody goes, by rules, we can do this. All right, we leave port. Now, I look to my friend and I challenge him to a duel. Do you accept? Yes, combat has been engaged. The ship now teleports across the ocean to somewhere else. For the guy who's also the duel is also the captain of the ship, and he is steering the boat to the other side of the ocean. We have now teleported the ship because we got into a duel. By movement rules and by combat rules, that is legitimately one thing we can do. And please don't have that happen. Now, any GM who's sane will say, no, that's not how ships work. But then you go, that is how combat works. For I have engaged myself in a duel. I have run across the entire length of the castle. What? By movement rate, I can do that. And the enemy can also chase me across the entire length of the castle. But I am now on the other side of the castle. Nobody else who's engaged in combat can walk after me. Because I am super fast, because combat is dumb. Seven Seas is beautiful. First edition was a wonderful train wreck. Because that rule is the dumbest rule ever written. Please don't have a rule similar to that. please have at least a number that all ships move in equivalency to. I don't care if it's just airship speed units. It doesn't have to be kilometers per hour. It doesn't have to be miles per hour. Just have it be airship speed units. We'll just call it ASUs. The ship moves 3 ASUs. Fantastic. I now know how, and it has a turn mode of 2, so it has to move 2 airship units before it can make another turn. Okay, and now it makes 2 turn, another 2. Or, because I'm sorry, I'm a Starfleet Battles player, turn modes make sense to me. But have something that prevents you from being able to spin around in place in 360, 360 nose scoping your battleship while, moving, while you're doing 360s in the air, you're also, getting you 360 degree coverage because you're spinning around, and you're also so you're spinning around the x-axis, and you're also rotating around the y-axis, and you're spinning because you can. Because why? Because shit, whatever. And you can now do this thing, and you're teleporting across the battlefield. No, you need to stop this because somebody is going to try. The person who used to do this is no longer with us, but he will have tried because you have given him the option, and he would have destroyed your movement rule engine. I know because I might also have tried in the past to abuse your rule engine. Because the moment you give me the helm of a boat, I'm going to beat the shit out of it. I'm going to figure out I am the worst person to give a new boat to because I'm going to, oh, hey, I need you to do sea trials. How close to rolling the boat over can I get? Yes. And that's what I'm going to do to your airship if you make me captain. Do not make me captain or helmsman of an airship. I will try to do a barrel roll like I'm playing Star Fox. Which is actually an aileron roll. Thank you very much.
Do a barrel roll.
Do a barrel roll. Aileron roll. Barrel roll.
All right. I think we kind of went off the rails a little bit there, but that's okay. I think that was needed. Because, I mean, in his game, some of the things that are that are basically set down is the speed of ships and how fast they can get from point A to point B. That is a very big thing of being able to disseminate the goods. So, yeah. I mean, for his game, that would be definitely something to look at. I mean, you could even have it to where the reason that it costs $1 million is because you can use whatever wood you want to build a hull, but the what is it, the center beam that goes through the ship,
keel.
Yes, the keel has to be made from this certain wood, and there's only X amount of trees in the city, and it takes X amount of time to grow them. So you could actually use that, and that's what keeps everybody from if you accidentally, because thinking back, you said we could ram things.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
You have to have a Ramstrom, but yes.
Okay. But if it's an open ship and there's no, please don't throw me, at X thousand kilometers a second when I ram things, then yeah, we need the Heisenberg compensator.
Yeah.
I hadn't considered that.
So what you can do is that either part of the keel, like the front part, because the ships used to be able to, because you have the keel that runs the full length, but then you have the top that comes up and out. That's what actually does the protection, because typically ships are always going to go forward.
Yeah.
So that'll be the limitation in your game, is that ships are not allowed to go backwards, and they just won't move backwards. They have to go forwards and turn.
Yeah, I hadn't considered that.
So I mean see, this is good. We're brainstorming. We're learning while we're also teaching, which is amazing. I love it. I love everything about it. Twice on Thursday. Oh wait, is this Thursday?
Yep.
So and lastly, let's look at the actual wildlife, because I don't think we've really talked about the wildlife. So how does, and I'm going to start with TCG here. How does wildlife affect the region that you put them in, or is there just every once in a while just something weird that happens and it something sprouts 3 heads and goes crazy?
Oh, it goes all kinds of ways with me. Like, I have more than once based what a region will look like off of the animals you'll find in it. Like, if you'll find a heavily predatorized area, you'll find a place that has a lot of very timid prey creatures, and generally a lot of shrubbery, because the prey creatures aren't there for very long, so they aren't eating it.
A shrubbery?
And if you find a lot of prey creatures in the area, but not a lot of predators, you're going to find a lot of area just completely decimated in the way of plant life, because, well, there's nothing stopping the prey from eating everything. And there's also, especially in Palladium, there are a lot of digger. Excuse me a second.
All right, Kai, what about you? How? Oh,
I was going to finish one little thing.
Oh, go ahead. I thought you had somebody at your door. So
I do, but I wanted to finish with one little thing. There are plenty of creatures in Palladium that dig, and I have actually had entire mountain ranges, not just by dwarves, but by these digger creatures, altered. Like, not necessarily to build up the mountain, but if you go across the mountain, you'll find entire areas that have been landscaped, not necessarily for the good of the mountain, but it's just completely different from what it was last year, because the diggers have moved dirt and piled it up somewhere. Right.
okay.
Now,
All right, Kai, what about you? How do the wildlife, with the way that your game, or games that you have set up, how are they affected by the regions?
Okay, I know I mostly focus on the wet, warm, fresh, and water inland sea, but yes, it really does come down to, you're not going to find a whole lot of creatures unless there's an actual food chain to support it. So I'm not going to throw lions and tigers and okay, the bears will be up in the cold water area, but you're not going to see them, too many of them down in certain areas. So it's just one of those. I do pay attention to the climate. I also realize that I'm not going to throw too much unless there's a lot of invader species running around, because, well, technically we're in a fantasy world where teleportation magic is, and nobody gives a fuck about the environment. So things are going to be weird, but I'm going to have wildlife based on what region you're in. So you're not going to, and what continent you're on, what region. There's certain sea monsters that will only be native to certain areas. Is it a freshwater sea monster? Is it a saltwater sea monster? Is it brackish? Does it live in this area? Is it a jungle? Is it a temperate region? Is it a subarctic or Arctic region area? You're going to encounter creatures that only live in the mountains, but I'll try to divide them up by which continent you're going to be on. Though I do have the idea that if they're intelligent, there's a good chance that if it's an intelligent monster, that is can do any kind of crafting at some point in the past, it probably has migrated and explored and gone everywhere else. But I also know that certain players or certain people in the past go, I really like a tiger population to be transported, and they'll move an entire tiger population from one continent to the next. And that might have happened thousands of years ago, so we have some divergency. And I'll throw basic ideas like, hey, this tiger grew up in a weird fairy forest that has a lot of bioluminescence, so therefore its coloration and coat might reflect the fact that it lives in a weird glowing a fairy forest that casts weird shadows. So its coloration will be extremely bizarre. So when you capture, it's like, hey, this tiger's kind of looks like a displacer beast in coloration, but it's got weird blue stripes. Why would it have those? Because it came from that kind of forest. Oh, so there's more creatures like in that one? Yeah, there's a good chance that if you go out into the dark evil fairy forest, that you can probably find some weird monsters that are different. I want to go. Why? I want a glowing tiger, please, that I can ride into combat and or put its head on my wall. All right. And now we get to go. And now I get to go have the adventures of some 1800s British adventurer wandering off into the woods with a pith helmet on, because he wants to go hunt it. I hunt a magical tiger that's out in the woods that does weird things, and I get to go. Yeah, it exists out there, and watch the druid go. I'm going to kill him. What? I'm just going to kill. I'm going to kill that guy. And no, I'm just going to murder him in the street at night. Just going to do it. Why? Because he wants to go murder the weird ultra rare blue glowing tiger. I don't want that happen. It's like, and it's fun because now I have plot hooks to go. Hey druid. Yeah, you want to kill this guy? I want to kill him. All right. And now suddenly there's a big firefight between the party, the party back at the druid, and this weird hunter and his hunting party of assholes. And now suddenly one player gets hit with an arbalist that's as powerful as an elephant gun that pins him to a tree. I get to have fun adventures now, because why? Because I made a cool tiger that lives in a special wood, or I get to have players who are very terrified of going into water because a crocodile, because the water is warm, the water is clear, the water is nice, and there's plenty of food. So the crocodile is huge. So they're like, oh hey, is that a plesiosaur? That is a plesiosaur. I don't want to be here anymore. Why? It's a plesiosaur. I'm going somewhere else. Aw, but you don't want to go fight the Loch Ness Monster? Not when the Loch Ness Monster has the ability to move faster than me in an ocean I can't see the shore on. I'm going to die now, aren't I? Yes. Okay, we're taking our little canoe and we're going to make it go really, really fast. Why? Because I don't want to get eaten by dinosaurs. Aww. Water scary? Water scary. Okay. And that kind of fun and weirdness. It's terrain so much more fun. If you haven't haven't figured out, I put a lot of thought into my little inland sea jungle land of weird monsters, because that's been the area I've been having fun playing in for a couple of years now. So
all right. So I really don't have anything else left, except for we've looked at the construction, the stuff that's thrown into it. Now, and I'm going to start with Kai on this one. How does geography affect the gameplay and player experience? Once you've got everything laid out, how does it affect how you go about, disseminating the information, bringing them into the immersion of the world, etc.?
Honestly, once you've done all the hard work, figured out all the, I know we've been throwing out a lot of details, a lot of ideas, a lot of work. The thing is that all of this does one thing. It creates a consistent, cohesive story and an image that you can portray. If you can describe the Amazon River Delta in a very interesting fashion, if you can describe going out onto Lake Michigan in a way that feels right, where that point where you go out in the boat and you no longer can see shore and all you can see is waves and sky and that's it. Can you describe that and make it feel right? Can you knowing all this information, if you can do all the homework, your players shouldn't realize just how much work has gone into it, because they're just going to simply go travel into town and they're going to see a market that's going to be functioning. They're going to see barges on the harbor that are unloading and loading freight and cargo. They're going to because the one thing you don't want to do as a GM is to have a town that is lifeless, where you've arrived and nobody's doing anything and everyone's just standing around waiting for you to walk up to a guy with a question mark over their head or an exclamation mark over their head. You do not need to have a glowing pillar of light that says, this is the quest giver, this is the guy you need to go talk to have information. Your party should arrive into town. The gate guards should sound like they're used to travelers. So if you're in if you've thought about the culture, like if this is an isolated community that never sees anybody, and you walk in and they all give you that weird pod people look, because you figured out that this is a town that doesn't see people. You're the outsider. Congratulations. Everyone's looking at you and go, eh! They point at you and scream because you're different. You're not around it. But if you're in a trade town that you figure out this is a hub community that has trade, that has this, has that, you're just another face in the crowd. But because you figured out, because you've done the homework, you know what the food is like. It isn't just simply congratulations, you're in generic, not Anglo-Saxon English town where we have only pig and porridge. Like we have pork product and nothing else, because you put some thought into it. Well, now you know, okay, there's fishing, there's cattle ranching. Because of the fact that there's vast plains, we can do cattle ranching. Oh, we don't have that, we have pig, so there's pig and pork. We're in a hilly region, okay, so it's got sheep or a sheep-like product. Oh, we don't have sheep. Well, someone has to make clothes. What are the clothes made out of? Is it flax? Is it some kind of cotton? Well, you got an idea what that's like. Well, that isn't made here. Where's it made at? Now you know that there's a trade. There's going to be a trade town. So when a player goes, hey, I'm looking for things to purchase. Hey, or you can go down to the dockyards and there's people who are actually working. Why? Because you know that there's 4 communities that are all, hauling in freight by barge into this town. Or you know that there's caravans that come in every 3 or 4 days that bring fresh food, that bring fresh cloth, that bring linens and cottons in. You know that this is what's going on here. So you know that, oh, hey, look, the orcs your orcs or generic bad guy stand-ins are blocking the road. Well, you know that, okay, there's probably a caravan that's stuck 3 days out. Or, hey, we haven't seen a caravan in 2 days. Well, you know there's that caravan might have had a problem anywhere along this road that has a 3-day travel delay. You can cast the adventure in a better light. You've done the homework. You know the jump routes. You know the travel routes. You know it all. But now you can give a more intelligent, a bit of a material. If you lay a map out and go, hey, this is where I think the problems are, and you can draw a line on the map. Put your finger and trace a line. Your player gets to go, oh, okay, I'm following what you're saying, because now you don't have to say it is due north and you need to travel north for 3 days or 22 miles, and you'll arrive at the point where this is happening. That's great if we have GPS. That's great if we have orbital maps, but we don't have that. We have some some farmer goes, yeah, it's about 3 days out. Just like when you see the old burned down barn where the old town used to be, that's where you need to be. Where they're probably hiding out at, and you can make it all sound better. But because if you put the sweat in ahead of time, you can just relax and put more flavor and character and give the personality you want to give. Congratulations, the town that when you arrived, you had nothing more on Adventure 1. Because remember, players you only get to play for 2 to 4 hours a week or a session, and you might just have written down a glorious is a town on a hill on the side of a river, and that's all you started with. But guess what? You've got 5 days. You got 6 days to start mapping out what the party has. Oh, hey, look, there's a ruined castle nearby. Okay, that's another adventure. You have time now to start flashing it out. And you start radiating out the information. You start with a blank slate. You are tabula rasa on Adventure 1. By Adventure 10, you should have an idea that the party travels about X number of miles a day, and now you can. But this is why you got to be careful when you give your players infinite mobility, and flight is infinite mobility, because when you're playing with terrain, you have natural blockers. You can only walk so far in a day. How far does a boat sail? Very, very far. Even a slow 6 miles an hour, 24 hours later, you've given the circle of probability of where you could end up gets quite large. And flight takes that even farther. Fast flight, the faster you fly, the more insane the circle becomes. Like, oh, he only travels at 100 miles per hour. How long can it fly before it has to land and cool off the engines or refuel? Oh, it can travel about 5 hours at 100 miles per hour. Congratulations, GM. You've now given yourself a 500-mile circle that you need to know. Do you know it? No. Is most of it flyover country? Probably, but your party could choose to land anywhere. And now you got to figure out, how does anyone do anything when you can This is why I'm giving you the warning of figure out your flight speed. You have the benefit, though, in your crafting in your world where you have islands. But how do people know where the islands are? Are there small places and outcrops to disappear into and land on? These are all things you got to worry about when you start having speeds that are insane, because the circle of probability to hunt for somebody becomes impossible to catch. It's when I play BattleTech, one of the things I had to worry about is, how do you intercept somebody who's coming in from half a solar system away, and no matter where you go, they can go somewhere else? But the problem here is that I have sensors. I can track their engine plumes. I can divert, and there's fuel costs. But if you don't have fuel, and your only worry about is food, but there's food can be bypassed in ways. So unless you have fuel, the only thing you got to worry about now is time and speed. And because in essence, because you're using what amounts to magical nuclear reactors, your lifespan is beyond the range of a tactical environment. And when you have the ability to travel 1,000 kilometers per hour anywhere in a circle, in 5 hours, you'll never. In an hour, if I can break contact, you'll never find me. And that is a problem and a benefit. Your players will see it as a boon unless they have to go track down somebody. But this becomes the problem of everything in the world now focuses on the small pieces that actually matter, where your cities are, where your trade hubs are, where your resources are gathered, because anyone can travel anywhere else, but they have to come to port. And the port becomes the most valuable thing in the world, and now you know where the Navy's at. When the fleet has to guard something, they know it's at port, because once you go to sea, you're never going to force an engagement. Once you go into the airship realm, you'll never be able to catch anyone. and unless you have magical detection that's insanely long range, you're never going to see it coming. And there's clouds everywhere that can conceal movement, and you only had to mark one eyeball. You're going to have people who will dive into a cloud bank, and then die. Unless you got eagle eyes at all ranges. And trust me, big ships become very small very quickly at a distance. So even if you have a super carrier sized airship, it's going to turn into a deceptively small dot darting through clouds that are catastrophically much bigger than it. And they're moving at bullet speeds. You're watching a 1,000-foot long bullet moving through cloud. Nobody's going to see it coming until literally it arrives like the Star Destroyer at the end of Rogue One. You're all having fun, and then suddenly the Imperial battleship arrives. Thump! Oh shit! And then you hit it, and then you bounce off of its hull and die horribly because you're in a Corvette, and the Star Destroyer looks at you funny and then blows up your friend. And that's the kind of crazy you're going to be looking at if you don't find a way to give anyone any sense of detection. But this is where movement comes so important, and why flight is scary. Flight is terrifying. It is, every player wants it. No GM should ever desire anyone to ever fly. I love airships, trust me. I love airships. But flight changes everything. No castle, there's no fortifications, there's no walls, there's no choke points. You can go anywhere. And the faster you can move, this is why everyone's like, oh, airships move at like 10 kilometers per hour, 20 kilometers per hour. But we're all used to the idea of modern air flight, where things move at 700 miles per hour, and that's a slow airliner. Well, that's not a slow airliner; that's a pretty fast airliner, but it's a good airliner. It's moving at 700 miles per hour, and you're like, "I'm flying, yeah, at nearly the speed of sound," and that's not going that fast. And that's something realizing that in 3 hours, you're now looking at a 2,100 mile radius that you've traveled. Good luck trying to detect it unless you have a massive ground air radar system that's sitting here to track everyone's movements in real time and communicate that. But communications are slow unless you have a way of getting communications to go up faster. Just save yourself a lot of heartache. Don't let anyone fly for more than 10 seconds or 10 minutes and keep it slow, because otherwise the entire world begins to collapse, or the amount of work that you need to do becomes immense, and the world becomes very small all of a sudden. It's a very big world. It's a very small planet. And yeah, sorry to just ramble there, but
I'm just letting you go.
It's okay.
It's one of those times where we just shook you up and went, here you go. You just sit back and go,
I put a lot of thought into flight and the consequences of flight.
Oh yeah, I had not realized that myself, and I was sitting here going, what?
Yeah.
All right.
It is definitely something to consider, because I like Barrett said, I had to consider that when I made it a flying game.
The only reason why I've thought about it is because of the fact that I usually play smugglers. I will tell you the truth. I play smugglers and traders and black market marketeers. So for me, the ability to lose. Also, when I play ground combat, ground transport characters, I try to envision the idea of doing the cannonball run. or Smokey the Bandit. What are the most important things? Is like when you watch Smokey the Bandit or Cannonball Run, or you think about being a smuggler, how do you do it? How do you? Like, the thing about Smokey the Bandit is that the bandit didn't want he didn't want to break contact with the police. He's trying to lead them away constantly. But that's that. But Cannonball Run was, I want to break contact. I don't want to get caught. I want to get across the country as fast as humanly possible. But if you're playing a smuggler, your entire thing is how do you get in and out of a location without being detected? How fast can you move without being seen? When you think about I'm playing like driving a submarine, it comes down to how fast can you move without someone finding you? It's noise. It's a lot of things. Every single environment, every single vehicle that you choose, every single way that you maneuver leaves a way that you have to think about how it functions. Most of us don't think about it because most of us just play a big, loud, noisy group of individuals who thump around in the muck, in the mud, and being in essence a bunch of goddamn people just wandering through the countryside, listening to Lord of the Rings music playing in the background because that's how we think it works. Until you realize that no, Middle Earth is fucked because it's the end, because it's a dying civilization living in the debris of a more glorious time. Roads aren't maintained; it's all trash. But unless you plan on playing in a debris-strewn an empire where it's post-apocalyptic. Yes, Lord of the Rings I actually count as post-apocalyptic because there was a grander civilization that has collapsed, and you're in the ashes of it, and you're wandering around the ancient roads that aren't maintained, ancient fortresses that aren't maintained. You're in a decayed, fallen empire where you could see what was once glorious, but you don't have it, and everything is about travel time. Ultimately, everything's about travel time and communications. And the more you start worrying about terrain, the more you got to think about how all of that works and why, again, flight bypasses all of it. Because after all, what is the one thing that everyone has made a comment of since they've read Lord of the Rings? Why didn't the eagles drop off the ring? Because the eagles could have just flown to Mount Doom and dropped it off. And I'm sure there would have been enough eagles that they could have run interception for the few dragons that were like, oh no, okay, Eagle 1, you are the ring bearer. Eagles 2 through 48 are interceptors. Your job is to intercept and run blockade for the 12 dragons that we know are in the area, the 12 drakes that are in the area. Each of you is tasked three of you are tasked to tackle each of those freaking drakes. You are the only one who matters. The rest of us could die. You matter. Go, heavenly bird. Bird 1, go. And then watch the rest of the eagles play interception. And
No, the guy, the head eagle is at the back of the location. You don't know how, but he has a mace and he goes, dive!
Right? Yeah. And it's like, because everyone has said, why didn't the Eagles deliver the freaking ring? Because it fucking would have been easy. And the moment you give continuous mass flight to players, you've now presented the Eagle problem to all of your players. Why don't we just fly in? Why walk? Why take 3 weeks to walk there? The entire invading army will take 1 week to arrive there by foot. Or we have one guy fly for 2 hours, drop off, sits there with the teleport beacon, drops the stick that has a little glowing crystal on it. That the mage goes, I know the signal has been transmitted. I now know, bloop bloop, for three mages teleport an elite strike team into the middle of the enemy castle. Thump. The adventurers now fan out and begin murdering the castle, which has no idea that you were there. One guy gets a choked out, distress signal because the fighter is dumb, slow, and failed his role. And now the guards begin to have their wake-up mobilization point where people are like, oh, I need to put armor on for the next 5 minutes. And meanwhile, you have the insane death quick guards who are running around slicing throats and gutting people while they're all getting prepared and flat-footed. Just running through, they're just murdering. It's like the freaking scene of the ninjas in Shogun. I run into the castle and just start killing off samurai left and right because two mages teleported in following a druid who is carrying a stick. Flight is terrifying. Never allow it. Unless you're prepared, unless you are really prepared. And at that point, every single castle becomes some kind of horrifying German flak nest where you have elite troops who are sitting here watching, with eagle eyes into the darkness, with heat vision, going out there and watching everything. And, sir, I see a rogue eagle currently approaching us. Is the eagle that he's hunting for food? No, he is on a direct course to the castle. Sound the alarm! Whee! And you hear the alarm, the air raid sirens go up, and suddenly they're loading proximity fused alchemist fired ballista bolts into there and firing them with light detection detonators. They get into within 5 feet, they detonate, and now you watch explosions fill the sky because everyone's afraid of, that druid who can teleport into a birdie is probably carrying a staff that can transform with him. And the moment he lands in there, we'll have an elite strike team of death commando assassins who are going to teleport into our town. We must not allow this to happen. Shoot down anything hostile. But it's just a falcon, sir. Kill it. It's a parakeet. Kill it. And you watch the flat guns, just like Bofor guns, are being loaded up with ballista bolts. Thump 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 thump. And you're just watching guys dropping heavy ballista bolts into the fucking thing as they're just thump 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 thump. You're just watching it and you're like, why are they so paranoid? Adventurers are why everyone is so. Why this thing looks like you're approaching a goddamn Iowa class battleship. Just. The sky is exploding with explosions everywhere, and the druid dies, and you're like, you should have walked. Or I have an airship. It's the HMS Victoria, but it's the Victory, but it's an airship. It's a 98 gun ship of the line, first class. Well, how the fuck do you fight that? Well, your castle better be able to fire back with as much firepower as that airship has got. Because remember, no matter how many guns you can bring to bear, you cannot beat. Your airship will never beat a fortress. It's designed to fight it. And if airships have been around if your airship has been around for a grand total of 2.5 seconds, you're the first one who has one. Nobody will have a way to counter it. But if they've been around and they're an integral part of culture, defenses are going to be built around it. Nobody's like, we only look upon a 2D battlefield because we're all humans and we're stupid. No, we've had airships for 200 to 300 years, if not longer. All of our guns are designed to train up because skybirds are scary. Metal skybird is scary, must kill. And the more advanced the airship is, the more advanced the defenses to stop it are. And they're not going to be simple, a cannon on a mount that's looking upwards. No, it's going to be some horrifying, it's going to be a ballista that's going to be rapid firing because you have your airships that move at the speed of light. The speed of fast. So you're going to need to have guns that track that fast. And they're going to fire that quick to anticipate the range to be able to put shots on target that quick, to be able to stop the airship from arriving, because you don't want to have the Last Jedi moment of It's a beautiful scene, but the players go, I will defeat the enemy by sacrificing the flagship in a high-speed transit drive ramming attack into the castle, into the throne room where I know the villain is. Boom, 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 boom. 3 islands explode, behind it because you impacted it that hard. Because the kinetic energy that's going to be behind a several 100-ton airship traveling at 200 to 300 meters per second is going to be high. And so when you start saying orbital velocity impacts and you're starting to see things that weigh 1,000 tons hitting at that velocity, you're going to see beautiful, beautiful effects that will make Rian Johnson bleed. It's the best scene that makes no fucking sense and it shouldn't happen. So find a way to slow things down so that way you don't have 1,000-ton kamikazes. Please.
Well, I think that pretty much rounds us out for the night. The last 20 minutes has been Kai, and I'm just kind of we're
I'm
good.
sorry.
I find it inspiring, so I find it.
Well, yeah, I'm good with it. I'm great with it because that was 20 minutes. I'm actually here trying to get stuff set up for next week's stream already. So, make sure you check us out next week. We are going to be here with Bear, the Gen X GM, our good friend GM Cody, and we are going to. Last week, you saw us
characters.
create heroic things to play, and next week we are going to be heroic. So definitely make sure you check out his backer kit. I'll go ahead and throw that into the chat for folks. It is 100% funded. They were looking for 1,500 Canadian. They got 20. They've got 23, but it's still open for another 48 days, guys. And there's still some stretch goals to get. So let's see. We've unlocked the introductory adventure, and it is going to be available for print on demand. Also, the handbook, which is going to have 12 superheroes and villains in it from his own Zenith comic universe, along with the print on demand for that, and STLs that are unlocked also. So those of you who like to do 3D printing, those are available, will be available to you. The next one is going to be the Whimsy cards, and these are going to be an additional thing, is where it's going to be kind of like a draw, and fate will help you out for, you get one column shift to whatever it is, and then they will provide at 3,000 or 30,000, I should say, provide that to everyone also. And then there's some more stuff. There's more things, more adventures that he's got ready that he's going to write up. Some beautiful art. So definitely make sure you check that out, guys. We're going to be playing this next week, and I kind of wish he would have given us the option he gave his group last night, which was a completely random roll-up.
I'd have done it.
And then working some stuff in. But instead, we've got someone who's going to try to get dead people to where they need to go, and Darkwing Duck. in me, burning things on fire, and Cody, a mystic. So yeah, make sure you come and join us next week. Definitely want to thank everybody for being here with us tonight. This is, I will say, this is the first part of a 10-part series. So we're good. After we get through with the playing and becoming heroic, we are going to come back to this and keep on going. So if you are enjoying this, make sure you hit the like, hit the subscribe button. Links to every member of the Table Breakers crew is in my mine and Kai's description. Make sure they're tiny URLs. It's just to help me out, so I don't have to go in and re-link everything every time that we do these. But definitely make sure that you're following these great folks. We hope to have Connell back here in about 5 weeks. Jade, we're hoping to get him back eventually. He is out because he's working 60 to 80 hours a week. Or about 50 to 60 hours a week, I should say. And he's very tired, man. He's enjoying the money, but he's a very tired man. So, like I said, make sure you hit the like, hit the subscribe. Join us next week with our good friend, Barry the Gen X GM. Thank you much for joining us, and we will catch you next time. Have a great night.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.